Even the big boys messed up sometimes. Alright folks, let's take a ride back to the 1940s when Ford was pumping out cars like hotcakes, but not every one was a winner. In fact, some of these rides were straight up flops. Ugly, slow, overpriced, or just cursed from the jump. These are the Fords that made people go, no thanks. Let's dive into 8 Ford faceplants from the 1940s that Detroit would rather you forgot.
Make sure to subscribe and smash the like button. Number 8. The 1950 Ford Crestliner. Proof that a fancy suit doesn't make you a better dancer. Ford had big plans for this model. Throw on some two-tone paint, slap on extra chrome, and pitch it as a sporty, upscale alternative to the regular lineup. It looked sharp, sure, especially in an era when cars were starting to dress like jukeboxes. But under all that glam, pure average. The performance? Meh. It had the same V8 as cheaper Fords, but with a price tag that actually surpassed Mercury's more feature-rich models. Imagine paying steakhouse prices for a burger with fancy pickles. That was the Crestliner experience. Buyers weren't fooled. The public took one look, shrugged, and said, "I'll take the Mercury, thanks." Gone by 1952. Forgotten by most. Except maybe your uncle, who still thinks two-tone means luxury.
Number 7. The 1949 Ford station wagon, part of the famed shoebox Ford redesign, was sleek, modern, and, in its wood-paneled form, the suburban dream, at least on paper. In reality, it was more like the suburban nightmare, with termites. See, back then, real wood trim wasn't just a cute styling detail, it was structural. And unfortunately, Ford's wood treatment techniques were about as effective as a soggy napkin in a rainstorm. Poor sealing, cheap varnish, and untreated joints meant water got in and stayed in. Fast forward a few seasons, your beautiful family hauler is now part station wagon, part compost pile. The doors warped, the panels rotted, and the woody charm turned into a repair bill that made dads across America sigh deeply. It was gorgeous, no doubt, but owners quickly learned that unless you lived in the desert or were a marine varnish enthusiast, your classy wagon would rot faster than leftovers in the sun. Still, today, the survivors are beloved classics, mostly because they've been fully restored, sealed tighter than a moonlander, and are owned by people who wouldn't dream of driving them in the rain.
Number 6. The 1948 Ford Anglia. A charming little British compact that Ford thought might win over post-war American hearts. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Imagine this. In a land where everyone's driving V8 Coward chrome battleships, Ford shows up with a tiny, bug-eyed Brit powered by an engine that sounded like a lawnmower with asthma. It looked like it had been drawn from memory by someone who had never seen a car and had about as much power as a sneeze in a wind tunnel. The idea? Offer a small, fuel-efficient option during a time when gas was cheap and bigger was better. Americans took one look and said, "No thanks, I'll take the Buick that's longer than my house." It was also right-hand drive, which made parking feel like a math problem. And the controls? Confusing even by British standards, and that's saying something. In the end, the Anglia was the wrong car in the wrong place at the wrong time. Americans didn't want compact and quirky. They wanted fins, flash, and freeway muscle. So the little Anglia packed its tiny bags and headed back across the Atlantic. Today, though, it's best remembered for 2 things: failing in the US and flying in Harry Potter, which honestly might be the most useful thing it's ever done.
Number 5. The 1947 Ford Sportsman Convertible, the car that asked, what if your Sunday cruiser also needed furniture polish? Picture this.
It's the late 40s. The war is over, GIs are back home, and America wants chrome, steel, and horsepower. Ford says, nah, how about a luxury convertible made out of wood? Like actual wood. Mahogany panels on the sides, maple framing. Basically, it was half car, half cabin cruiser. Now, don't get me wrong, the Sportsman looked stunning. It had the soul of a speedboat and the swagger of a country club valet. But it had one major flaw. It required the same upkeep as your grandmother's dining set. And let's be honest, after surviving World War II, nobody wanted to spend their weekends waxing their car and their canoe. Also, it wasn't cheap. Ford tried to position it as a high-end ride, but people figured if they were spending that much, they might as well buy a Cadillac and not something that might warp in the rain. In short, it was too fancy, too fussy, and way too high maintenance for the average post-war driveway. Today, a rare classic. But back then, the market said, thanks, but we'll stick to metal that doesn't rot.
Number 4. 1946 Ford Crater Hood models, the cars that bruised easily. Ford jumps back into the game with its post-war lineup, proudly rolling out the 1946 models. But there was just one small problem: the hoods. Nicknamed the Crater Hood Fords, these beauties had a dirty little secret. You could dent the hood just by leaning on it. Seriously, even a tired elbow at a car meet could leave a mark. Not exactly built Ford tough. So what happened? Post-war materials shortages meant Ford had to cut corners, and that corner happened to be steel thickness. The result? A hood so thin it should have come with a do not touch sign. Car guys quickly learned, don't shut it hard, don't sit on it, and for heaven's sakes, don't wax it aggressively. The cars looked solid, big grills, bold stance, but tap the hood and it caved like a soda can in July. People joked that hailstorms turned these cars into lunar landscapes. So while Ford helped put America back on wheels, the 1946 models also taught us an important lesson. Appearances can be deceiving, especially when your hood folds under pressure. Class dismissed, just don't lean on the hood on your way out. Number 3. 1942 Ford Super Deluxe, the car that lost to Hitler. A rare, almost gem, the 1942 Ford Super Deluxe. It was shiny, stylish, and ready to hit American roads with flair. And then World War II said, nope. See, Ford had just rolled out the Super Deluxe in early 1942, right before Uncle Sam rang the bell and said, all right, boys, shut it down. We've got tanks to build. Civilian car production stopped cold by February. So if you were lucky enough to snag a 42 Ford before the assembly line got militarized, congrats. You're now the owner of one of the shortest run production cars in U.S. history. Talk about bad timing. Ford has upgraded the grille, tweaked the trim, and was ready for a solid sales year. Then came rationing, factory retooling, and a big old "closed for war" sign on the door. So, why did it flop? Not because it was a bad car. It just had the worst launch window ever. Imagine throwing an opening party and the fire department shuts you down halfway through setting out the snacks. Only a few thousand were made, and many were later scrapped or repurposed during wartime, so spotting a real 1942 Super Deluxe today is like finding a time-traveling unicorn with chrome bumpers. Number 2. 1941 Ford sedan delivery, the worst of both worlds. On paper, it sounded like a genius idea. Take a car, give it some cargo space, and boom, you've got a stylish delivery vehicle. A van for the swinging 40s. But reality? Not so smooth. This thing was basically a Ford sedan with the back seats yanked out and a pair of barn-style doors slapped on the rear. It looked cool, but businesses quickly realized it had less cargo room than a lunchbox and rode like a couch on roller skates.
Imagine trying to deliver crates of soda or big toolkits with the cargo space of, well, a car that's had a bad breakup. Comfort? Not great. Practicality? Even worse. Most small businesses just said, why bother? And bought real panel trucks instead. You know, the ones that could actually carry stuff without bottoming out on a curb. So yeah, the 1941 sedan delivery was a little too niche, a little too awkward, and a lot too small. It failed to deliver literally and figuratively. Lesson? If you're gonna make a cargo car, maybe make sure it can carry more than groceries and regrets.
Number 1. 1940, when cars had curves, chrome, and a flair for the dramatic. Enter the Ford Deluxe, a looker of a car with a steering wheel that tried way too hard to impress. The infamous banjo wheel. Why the name? Because it looked like a musical instrument, a bunch of thin metal spokes stretched out like strings. Super elegant, super stylish, super fragile. Turns out, the banjo wheel wasn't built for real driving. It literally cracked under pressure. You know, like when drivers tried to steer the car. Not ideal. Drivers were promised luxury, but what they got was a wheel that felt like it belonged in a jewelry box, not a 3,000-pound hunk of Detroit steel. The public reaction? Looks great until it falls apart. Ford got the message loud and clear. They scrapped the dainty design in 1941 and went back to something a little less musical, a little more functional.